Hi everyone, this is Fancy and this is Project 15 fonts. Now these are system fonts. These are fonts that are commonly available on any system, whether it's for a PC or for a Mac, so for an iOS operating system. So I've created a new folder called Fonts. We can see that in my web editor here. I have created a new index file which I've titled Fonts. So that's steps 1 through 3. Step 4 says to build a table with 2 columns and 11 rows. Using CSS, set the table to be 900 pixels wide with no border. So you see that I'm using an internal style sheet. Here's my opening style and my closing style element above my head section, or my head closing tag. And my first declaration is table. I want to target the table element that will be in my HTML. Curly braces, and in between the curly braces I have a width of 900 pixels, a border of none, and color. So color, I'm using a hexadecimal code, which we'll see in the next lesson, and that's preceded by a pound sign and a combination of 6 letters and or numbers. So it's alphanumeric. And then I have a text align of left. So this is my basic table. So then I want to go down here and in my body put my table opening element and my table closing element. And everything in my table goes in between the opening and closing table element. Next, step 5 says to make the first table row contain table header elements with 24 pixel font size. So you remember an element that is a TH is a table header, and it makes all the font that are used in that table header bold. So it said to add a padding. So I have 4 values, and remember when we have 4 values, the first one starts at the top, second one right, third one bottom, fourth one left. So on the bottom and left side, there are 25 pixels of padding on the bottom and 15 pixels of padding on the left, 0 at the top and the right. Now I just want to point something out. See, I'm getting this little orangey yellow warning, and if I scroll over, it says unit of measure pix is redundant. And what it's talking about is the unit of measurement that I used on the 0. It's not necessary to put pixels on the zeros. So I'm going to take them all out, and you'll at least see now that I have a green check mark. It's just telling me it's redundant. It's going to run my file just fine in the browser, but it's just giving me some advice about writing my code a little bit more efficiently. All right, so font size 24 pixels. And then the second part of 5 says set all table cells with appropriate padding and make all text to be uniform 20 pixels in size. So that's the TD is the table data, or each cell in my table. So curly braces, in between I have these 2 pieces of code. Padding, again, 0 top, 0 right, 12 on the bottom, 15 on the left, and font size 20 pixels. Okay. Next, it says create separate classes for each table row, specifying the indicated font and a fallback font of either serif or sans serif, depending on the primary font. All right, so if we look at how we want our HTML file to look, we want it to look like that. So I've given a class for each of these rows, and I've named that class with the name of the typeface that I want to be represented by that row. So why don't we scroll on down so you can see all my different classes through Comic Sans right here, and then I've added a few more which I'll talk about at the end. So let's scroll down to our HTML, and you can see all of it right here in between my body opening tag and my body closing tag. Here's my table again. And nested in between are my table row. I'll just highlight those lines. So this is my first row, my table row. And inside that are my table headers. So I want this to be bold, so I've enclosed them in table headers instead of table data. Font name and more information about that font. That's this piece of information here. So what I could do is just copy that, right? And I can paste it in and just change or give it a class. So here is my first, or my second row actually, which contains the font name Arial in this sentence. So within that row I have two cells or two table data pieces of code. First one says Arial, the second one says this is a simple font and one of the most popular in the websites. And I can just kind of, if this is displaying right, which it will, and we'll take a look at that. There it is. Okay. If this is displaying correctly, then I can simply say copy this chunk of code, so that table row with two table data cells, and I can paste it, change my class, and type in new information between the opening and closing TDs. Okay, so I can then go on to the next line and just type it in. And so you can see I've done that, just kind of copying, pasting information all the way down to the bottom of the Comic Sans chunk of code. And then I've added 3 additional rows right here with the class of Kavivanar, Pacifico, and Sacramento. So these are 3 different Google fonts. And I'll show you how to add those. Because you don't want to always just have, you know, a very small selection of system fonts. So let's go take a look. So you understand what you need to do with these system fonts all the way down to Comic Sans. Now I will say that these will vary a little from system to system. And so let me point that out here. So do you see how some of them are in orange without double quotes, and then some of them have double quotes? So let's just take a look at that. I'm just going to type this one in. So this is my second one. So Times New Roman. Okay, it shows up, it puts it in as green and with double quotes. So this is just drawing a distinction between these and these system fonts. And then I'm going to separate with a colon and put in sans serif, or actually serif. So remember we talked a little bit about we want to create a font stack. Say for whatever reason the person viewing our page did not have Times New Roman on their system. We would want that text to be substituted with any serif typeface that they happen to have. So remember that sans serif and serif are the basic 2 categories of typefaces. All right, so don't get caught up if you don't have these specific system fonts. You will have a variation or a version of them. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there for a moment, and then I will be right back. All right, I'm back. So how do I pick another font aside from what's in my system? Because that's very limited. So one thing we can do is go to Google Fonts, which I have. I've gone to Google Fonts, and I will just open up a new page, Google Fonts. And I will look for that first one, which is Kavivanar. You can use any that you want. Okay, there's Kavivanar. I'm going to click on it. Okay, so here's Kavivanar. That's what it looks like. I want to make an extra line in my table that displays Kavivanar. Okay, so what I need to do is find a font that I like. I've chosen Kavivanar, and then when I roll over it, I can look at different features of this font. I'm going to skip down to See Specimen. Okay, And so if I like it, I can say select this font. And you'll notice that there's a little pop-up window at the bottom. It kind of collapses at the bottom. If I click on it, it will give me some information. It will give me a link to Kavivinar. It will also give me my CSS. Okay, so we need 2 bits of information. We need this, so we can copy that. And we can go up here just under our title, and we can put in a link. So remember, we want to link to an outside reference. So we have our link opening tag, and inside it, we have href, and we have the URL. So we just paste that right in there. So that's all that I've done is paste it right in there. So here's the URL, https fonts google blah blah blah, and then it's followed by its relation. This link's relation is a style sheet, and it has this closing angle bracket. So that's all that it needs here. And then I want to go down and I want to copy and paste this piece of CSS, this rule, and I pasted it here from line 56 to line 58. So it's going to display Kavivinar, and if my system doesn't have, or if my user system doesn't have Kavivinar, it's going to display a cursive typeface to replace it. And you can see I've picked 2 additional fonts from Google Fonts to put into my table. And that's all there is for using Google Fonts. And then this is what it looks like. Here's Kavivinar, Pacifico, and Sacramento. All right, have fun.